Hi John, my name is Nicole. I'm going to be reviewing the results of your tests that you completed or the inventories that you completed. First, I'd like to go through some details about the inventories, about the tests, what they're intended to measure. Then I'd like to go through some specific results of yours. At any time during this, if you have any questions, any concerns, if something doesn't seem about right to you, if something I say is wrong, I'd like to encourage you to interrupt me, to say, hey, I don't understand, or hey, that is incorrect. So the first inventory I'll talk about is the Beck Anxiety Inventory, the BAA, which you completed. Rating scale from 0 to 3, describing subjective, somatic, or panic-related symptoms of anxiety. And this test is really to discriminate between anxious and non-anxious diagnostic groups. The next inventory that you completed was the Beck Depression Inventory 2, the BDI-2. And again, this is a 5-minute self-administered test from ages 13 to 18. Which assesses depressive criteria as part of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 4th edition. And this is a copy of the book, so you can see. The new edition of the Beck Depressive Inventory is the most widely used instrument for detecting depression and coincides with the DSM-4, the book I showed you, diagnosis of depression. And again, the new inventory has 4 statements that were added regarding increasing severity about a particular symptom, such as suicidality, sleep, worthlessness, etc., and also includes weight loss, body image issues, and somatic complaints. The next measure that you completed was the Beck Hopeless Scale, and that was the BHS. And again, it's a paper pencil test, 5 to 10 minutes to complete. And it really predicts eventual suicide on 3 aspects: hopelessness, including feelings about the future, loss of motivation, and expectations. The last inventory that you completed, the Beck Scale for Suicide Ideation, or the BSS. Again, it's a paper pencil test, as you will know, and this really focuses on the examination of suicide intent in patients. At this time, John, I'd like to go through some of the specific results that you indicated in your inventories. And if you have any questions, like I mentioned before, concerns, or if something doesn't sound right to you, or if I discussed an answer that you didn't report, please feel free to interrupt me. I encourage your feedback as much as my feedback. So John, on the BHS, which is the Beck Hopelessness Scale, you scored a 97th percentile, indicating a moderate range, as well as on the BAI, which is the Beck Anxiety Inventory. You scored a 95.8, which is on the moderate range. However, on the BSS, you scored at a 99 percentile. Part of the reason for that, I think, is your answer, I would kill myself if I had the chance. Interestingly, that answer kind of contradicts some of your other answers, such as I have no desire to kill myself. I would try to save my life if I found myself in a life-threatening situation, which you responded to on another inventory. So I'd like to, at some point, discuss that contradiction. Here are some of your insight about what you were thinking, what you were feeling at the time. So John, based on your reports and the inventories that you had completed, it does indicate increased levels of depression, hopelessness, and anxiety, indicating distressed feelings and dejection, as well as anxiety about optimism for the future. At this time, I'd like to discuss some research, which kind of states the combination between suicide statements, which you had made, the one suicide statement, I would kill myself if I had the chance, and higher levels of depression and anxiety symptoms, which were also indicated on some of the other inventories that we had discussed, that place you at higher risk for suicidality or suicide intent or ideation. In addition, research also indicates the connection between reported higher levels of anxiety, which you indicated on the BAI, the Beck Anxiety Inventory, as well as a history of poor impulse control. John, that may also place you at higher risk for suicide impulsive behaviors. At this time, John, I think it's important to note or sort of identify that any information we have from you, from the interviews with you, from the inventories that you completed, will help us to identify risk factors and help us to implement an effective treatment plan to help you to prevent any suicide and to improve any depressive or anxiety feelings while monitoring you as we and you feel is appropriate and needed. John, at this time, I'd like to talk about some of the specific questions or responses that you had answered. And again, I want to encourage your feedback. And if you have anything to say, if something I say doesn't sound right, if there's an answer or a question or a response that I stated that you feel was answered incorrectly, please tell me, let me know, interrupt me. Your feedback, once again, is vital to this process. So John, on the BSS, which we indicated was the Beck scale for suicide ideation, you had mentioned, I have a moderate strong will to live. I have a weak wish to die. My reasons for living or dying are about equal. I have no desire to kill myself, and I would save my life if I found myself in a life-threatening situation, which we discussed before. However, these responses sort of contradict some of the statements that you made on the BDI-2, or the BDI, the Beck Depression Inventory 2, which I'd like to discuss following the completion of me reading some of the responses that you had mentioned. So on the BDI-2, you mentioned that you feel guilty all the time, that I would kill myself if I had the chance. I am so restless and agitated. I am sad all the time. I get very pleasure from the things I enjoy. That you also criticize, that you report feeling like you cry over little things. You also feel more discouraged about the future. You mentioned that I find it more difficult to make decisions. I'm more irritable than usual. I have not experienced any change in sleeping patterns, and you also not experienced any change in appetite. However, you report I have much more energy as ever. However, you also state that I get more tired or fatigued more easily. So if we go through some of the responses, some of them may be a little contradicting of one another. I'm wondering if whether there was difficulty understanding some of the questions, or if you were feeling things at different times. So once again, I'd like to go over that following the completion of reading the responses. On the BHS, which is the Beck Hopelessness Scale, you had reported that you can't imagine what life would be like in 10 years, that your future seems dark, that all you can see ahead of me is unpleasantness rather than pleasantness. I never get what I want, so it's foolish to want anything. And those are statements that you had marked true, or you had identified as true. Concerning the false statements, you report false when things are going badly. I am helped. You also reported false to in the future. I expect to succeed. I happen to be particularly lucky, and I have great faith in the future, which indicates, as we discussed before, minimal optimism in the future. Lastly, on the BAI, which is the Beck Anxiety Inventory, John, you had mentioned a moderate inability to relax, as well as fear of loss of control and difficulty breathing, as well as feeling hot, and mildly feelings of feeling choking, and fear of dying, and feeling scared. Those were all moderate. So John, at this time, I'd like to open up the discussion and kind of get a sense of where you're at right now and how you were feeling, or how your experiences were with taking the inventories that were completed. And I'd like to talk about some of the contradictory results, or some of the contradictory responses, and what you're thinking about some of your responses that I had read off to you. Once again, I'd like to encourage any questions, any concerns. I'll end by saying that as much information that we have will help us to provide and implement effective treatment for you to help improve some of the symptoms that you are experiencing at this time.